At the debate the other night, you brought up this. You said mobile cameras, or did you mean? Do you mean mobile, like moving around, or do you mean what kind of This is for policing neighborhoods. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about using the cameras that the city of Springfield bought through Homeland Security grants that they currently exist.
Aren't they like stationary, like on?
Well, you can, but you can move them around.
Okay,
you don't have to have them at the same spots all the time. You got 2 of them sitting out at the police academy at the present time. And again, you know, if you're going to look at doing things the same way you've always done them, you should expect to get the same results. And when we look at police and fire protection, we still approach it the way we did 25 or 30 years ago. And there's a lot of technology that is available that could be used. We talk in terms of doing these in high crime areas. I mean, it's not a matter you're just going to come down the street and want to put a couple cameras on some poles just to see what's going on. I mean, you want to focus those on areas where you have a problem, and then you want to monitor what is happening. I mean, we have cameras in the downtown, but the cameras in the downtown are not monitored. They're used that if there is a problem, you can go back and look at it, much like what you have with security cameras in a bank or in stores or that type of thing.
So is that monitoring like a whole new staff of people, or how many? You know, that's got to be 1 or 2 person a shift for 24 hours.
If you walk into the first floor of the building right across the street, you'll see cameras that are hooked up in that building, and whoever's sitting there is monitoring. So I mean, you could put a couple more screens in.
So why not hook it up and allow access to everybody? Wouldn't that help you? I mean, I've always wondered about that. I mean, you got intersection cameras everywhere, and we asked one time about would be able to get access.
My understanding is that you can also have these monitored by the patrol cars.
Okay.
That, you know, they could pull it up on their screens and be able to see what is going on. But that was, you know, one of the things we mentioned. The other thing that we mentioned is that if you look at the way the state police do their accident reports and that type of thing, we have computers in the car. We just don't have the software in the car that will allow that to basically be an automated type of report, so that every time there's an accident, particularly involving multiple cars, you could tie up an officer for well over an hour just doing his reports. You can automate that type of thing and free up that officer to be able to be out doing patrol or be doing other things.
Would they still have to type in the information?
But again, there's different systems. Part of the problem that we have, and don't want to talk about my opponent, but you know, he's got this thing about doing this crime map. You know, we have that also available to us right now. It's just that we don't have anybody who's capable of. I mean, this stuff is sitting. It's been sitting in the police department for some time. I'm not talking about expending any money to buy this stuff. This is grant money that has been given to the city. We just don't have anybody capable of doing it.
So just to be clear, they are not doing the crime mapping like you would see in a lot of other cities now.
Well, you know, the city of Chicago has been used, but I mean, again, we have the capability of doing that today if we had someone who had the capabilities of installing it and monitoring it.
And it's also a matter of training then, I guess.
Right, but you really, I mean, you need to have, you know, somebody who has the capability of doing that.
And you're not talking about those cameras that will catch people going through red lights?
No, I'm not talking about red light cameras. Or, you know, when you deal with those, generally speaking, it is the company that is providing the camera that's getting 85% of the revenue.
Lots been made.
And then it doesn't hold up in court. You know,
There's been problems.
And everybody gets mad at you.
Mm-hmm.
You would. Yeah. You know, lots been made about Sheila's out-of-town money. You know, the late mayor
should be.
Right. A lot of the late mayor's campaign funds came from people who had contracts with the city. You can't really do that at the state. At least the law says if you have over if you're contracted with, I believe,
50,000,
you can't contribute to campaigns. But we still continue to have that going on, you know, at the city, or we did. I mean, is that something that you see as a problem, and you know, what kind of rules, if any, would you want to pass ordinance-wise to deal with that?
You know, I'm not sure that as we try to focus on everything we want to do in city government, that we really have the capability of being able to monitor something like that. I mean, we can monitor anything that you want, but the state of Illinois does that. They have, by law, rules and regulations as to how you have to report and that type of thing. And I think that probably that is something that probably is best left to the state of Illinois to do, as opposed to us trying to set up a system within city government. You know, at election time it might be nice, but you're talking about doing this on an ongoing basis, and that might be very, very difficult or expensive to do.
Do you see it as a perception problem, and that's why they passed it at the state? You know, there was always talk, of course, of Todd Renfro, you know, raising money and
the city employee, he and Sarah and Davin both had the $500 club, whatever they called it. So city employees would pony up $500 a year, and they were there at the fundraiser.
These are practices that are, you know, frowned upon at the state level, but we still saw them going on at the city level. I mean, would you personally accept contributions from your employees after you got elected?
I wouldn't be accepting $500 contributions from my employees if we were doing something at $25 or $50. I don't see that as being a problem.
Would you need a campaign fund after you got elected if you're only serving one term?
I will tell you that if I recall, it was about $1,000 a month in expenses when I was in office. Well, I mean, you're getting hit up for ads, you're getting hit up for, you know, different things. You know, it's amazing the number of things that you do get hit up for.
Frank Coons doesn't like ceremonial stuff. Do you like ceremonial stuff? Ribbon cuttings, speeches, welcomings?
You know, there's two things. I really don't care for ribbon cuttings and didn't do a whole lot of ribbon cuttings when I was in office. But in terms of welcoming groups to the city of Springfield and that type of thing, that was one of the things that the Convention and Visitors Bureaus would use as they were approaching groups, that they could get the mayor to come out and give them a welcome for a large group.
What is the rodeo gone now, or do we know anything about that?
You know,
Curry Ice and Call.
I don't know anything more than what I've read in the newspaper about that, so I'd have to rely on you for information on that.
Well, there is an issue, actually, now you bring that up, because, you know, that's the second fairly high-profile event where you have a state agency that is based here that didn't even bother to talk to anybody locally. I mean, the other one was IDOT, that apparently was comfortable with building this giant rail line without really talking to anybody either. And, I mean, is there anything you can do as mayor to try to fix that? I mean, it just seems like there's an unwillingness to do. The most logical thing would be to call the mayor or somebody in charge saying, hey, you know, we got a problem. We might not be able to do this. Maybe you save it, maybe you don't, but at least you have the awareness and you're not having to react.
I would think that in terms of the rail situation, I think that probably is somewhat of a unique situation in that no one was really aware of what was taking place. With regards to the rodeo, certainly everyone was aware we had a contract, that they were coming in. It's a major piece of business. I would also think that someone from the city would be in contact with both the Rodeo Association as well as the State Fair people on a regular basis, just to see what is happening. Are there problems? Is there anything we need to be working on? I mean, it's unfortunate that somebody did not pick up the phone from the state and call the city, but I also think that, you know, the city, for a major piece of business like that, should be having some ongoing communications to make sure that there are no problems.
There was a controversy early in the late mayor's first administration about should the city hire lobbyists, and the city council fought with him on that. Do you think the city needs lobbyists full-time at the state, or is that something that you can go down Capitol Avenue and deal with yourself?
Or Washington, too, because Chelander's in Washington.
Right.
Well, do we need quote-unquote professional lobbyists at the state or the city? I don't believe that we do. Might we have someone in city government doing that type of thing, I mean, that would be a possibility. It probably would depend on the type of issues that would be being dealt with. I was president of the Illinois Municipal League when I was mayor of the city of Springfield. I did spend time lobbying. I was also a member of the executive committee of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and had done lobbying in Washington. I mean that I probably when I think back about it, I probably overall would make a trip a month to Washington, D.C.
Do you think that would be necessary these days?
Again, I don't know what the situation was. I mean, it was when we were doing it, we were generally looking for money, looking for grants. I mean, there was a purpose in doing those types of things. It's going to be what is the opportunity for the city to be able to generate dollars.
So lobbying might be part of someone's portfolio, but it wouldn't be their whole job, basically.
I wouldn't anticipate that would be necessary.
I want to go back to something you said earlier. You said you talked about not running against, having any interest in running against Tim Davlin in 2007, but you said in the last couple of years, the direction that things were going, you didn't like it, and that's how you decided to come back in. Were there a couple of specific things that really triggered with you and said, "This is I got to do something about this"? When you say you didn't like the direction, were there any specifics in there that really struck you?
When the city adopted its 2009 fiscal year budget, the city of Springfield in the corporate fund had revenues of approximately, they anticipated $100 million. They adopted a budget that had expenses of $108 million. What they did at that time was they had a fund balance of somewhere between $15 and $16 million. They took $8 million of it out, and they moved it over to the corporate fund. And then they were surprised the following year when they went to put together the budget, and it was $12 million out of whack. It was stupidity. I mean, the economy was slowing down. The economy had been slowing down since 2007. I mean, I don't know why someone would have not reacted to what was happening in the economy in terms of beginning to deal with the budget at that particular time, as opposed to using your fund balance with the idea that you would hope that things were going to get better. And I was very, very concerned about that. I was also very concerned with regards to what I was seeing in CWLP, and really felt that there needed to be a change.
Had been building for some time.
It had been building for some time, but it appeared to be getting worse.
Are you talking about patronage hiring at CWLP, or are you
Just the entire operation of CWLP.
Okay.
And I had a concern as to whether on a long-term basis we could maintain ourselves as a municipal utility.
And then just to reiterate, I believe when you were here during the primary, you said you preferred a professional manager?
A professional engineer.
Professional engineer, okay.
That doesn't mean what you just said previously. That doesn't mean that you would see a change in CWLP being a municipal.
No.
Okay.
My fear was that we could no longer continue to operate.
Based on, okay, got it.
You could sell CWLP. You could sell CWLP today.
Yeah.
And the first thing they'll do is close the plant. The plant is not efficient to a major utility, but Consolidated Edison or anybody else would love to have our customer base. Rates wouldn't stay the same.
You want to keep the utility the way it is city-owned.
I think that's the crown jewel of the city of Springfield. It's going to celebrate its 100th anniversary this year. And what we really need to do is restore it to the professional organization that it once was. And I think for people that are working within the utility, many of them are very frustrated with what has happened over the years. I mean, there was a time when, I mean, CWLP was viewed as being a cutting edge type of organization. I don't think it's viewed that way anymore. I don't think you have the pride that once was there for anybody who worked for CWLP.
You know, it's
And I think you really need to restore that. And we still have very, very bright people there.
It's interesting you say that, because I mean there seems to be like a divide in the community. I mean, you listen to, like, and I don't want to put too much credence into Sam Bedonia's show, but you know he had Rick Davis on recently, and they're like, "Well, what's wrong with CWLP?"
Not anymore.
Right. You know, Todd. Yeah. And I think Todd Renfro
Mm-hmm.
would beg to differ, and he would point to all the awards that they've won over the years, and et cetera, et cetera. You know, what is at the core of that belief that you have that this is an organization that's seen better days, basically?
You've lost a lot of people out of CWLP. You have an aging workforce within CWLP that is going to be retiring over the relatively near future. I think people who are employed within CWLP are very frustrated at the people that they see being hired within the utility. They're frustrated in terms of promotions that have been made within CWLP. You know, I talked in terms of eliminating 40 to 50 positions. I hardly ever run into anybody from CWLP that can't give me at least a few names. Now, not all of them are legitimate. I mean, I understand that, and one of the things we talk about, again, is doing an audit. I mean, it's not a matter that we're going on a witch hunt or anything like that. And I understand that people can be hired for political reasons. And as long as they're doing a job and they're functioning, I don't have a problem with that. But if you literally are doing make-work type projects, I do have a problem with that.
In your closing speech from forums, which I almost know by heart.
Good.
There's cure the
I'm
racial,
almost down to.
yeah, one couple more. The racial divide
Mhm.
thing. How do you deal with that? Is it?
You know, I believe that there is racial divide in the city of Springfield, and I think that one of the things you have to keep in mind is that whether it's real or it's perceived, if someone perceives it, it's real to them. And what we try to do is to talk in terms that we're one community. And I think from both talking to people today as well as from a historic perspective, people in the minority community, people predominantly on the east side of Springfield, perceive that they do not receive the same services that other people in the community receive. They do not trust the police department. That's a concern, and that's something that we really need to deal with. And one of the things that I've tried to do during the course of the campaign is to get over not only to the east side but on all sides of the city of Springfield. But I really do want to try to bring the community together and get away from sort of a it's us against them situation. And I think that the mayor is probably in the best position of anyone in the community to do that.
Does that mean a concentration of new services or something, or?
No, I don't know that it necessarily means that it's a concentration of new services. I think it's a matter of saying, yes, we recognize that there are problems. We're going to work on those problems. That we're going to try to provide services equally across the city. Where we have crime problems, we're going to focus on those problems and try to deal with those I remember when I was first in office, and I was home on a Friday night, and I got a call from a gentleman who lived on the east side, probably somewhere around 15th, 16th Street, and he was telling me that Cozy Co, who is, I think now since deceased, was operating a gambling place in his neighborhood. And so I thanked him, and when I got in my car, and I drove over there. And sure enough, it looked like that was what was taking place there.
Were they surprised to see you?
Oh, I didn't. I didn't walk in or anything like that. And so I got a hold of the field commander and talked to him. And he said, "Oh," he says, "we thought we had him closed now." And we would go back, but that gentleman had the same property rights that I had at my home, and he didn't need to put up with that in his neighborhood any more than I put up with it in my neighborhood. And we responded right away, because that shouldn't be allowed any place in the city of Springfield. And I think that what we have to do is to respond to people's concerns, regardless of where they live in the city of Springfield. And we really need to begin to deal with the serious problems that this community has. And again, those problems go beyond balancing the budget. I mean, people, when they think about problems, they think about, well, we got money problems. Yes, we got money problems. Money problems are the easiest thing to solve. It's the other problems we have in this community that we need to deal with, and that's what I really want to take the next 4 years and deal with.
I guess I have more of an observation than anything else, but a lot of people will say who deal with the issue of racism that if you really want to make changes, you need to bring people to the table in leadership roles. So I guess I just reiterate what Cullen was saying, that that may be one of the solutions to the problem. When people in East Springfield see that there's a commitment to making sure leadership is there and includes, like you said, the face of Springfield, that can have amazing results.
And let me point out that with the Quantum Growth Partnership, I think there are a lot of people recognizing for the first time that the Chamber is really trying to do some things in East Springfield that has never happened before. And I think that is something that has been a bit appreciated by people.
When you talked about that railroad meeting where you said you'd sue, was that when you were president of the chamber?
Yes. I was actually chairman of the board. Gary's the president.
Yeah. What are you at Western Illinois?
I chair the board at Western Illinois University, and I chair the board at St. John's Hospital.
Will you continue to do the St. John's thing if you become mayor? Will you have time to do all that?
We'll see.
And what about all of these Western? Would you be able to stay on all, or would you have to case by case?
Well,
basis?
we'll just see how things go.
How much time do you spend on those two things now? Just curious.
Probably more than I should. It's I retired 2 years ago, and when I retired, I had the chamber. I was chair of the chamber, and I was chair of St. John's, and those two things kept me fairly busy. And actually, St. John's was keeping me busier than the chamber. But once I was no longer chair of the chamber, I seemed to have a lot of time. So
I mean, there are two major, several major medical operations here. Obviously, St. John's seeks things from the city. Mayoral seeks things. I mean, is that a sort of a semi-conflict of interest by saying
if there would be a conflict of interest, then we would just simply resign. I'm not sure that there is a conflict of interest, and I doubt that I could serve as chair, but that doesn't mean I couldn't continue to be involved.
Great. Anybody else? Anything?
Just how's Carolyn doing? I guess that's the only
Actually, the interesting thing is, and I sometimes say this as a joke, but it's not. It took me 4 months to convince her.
She seems happy at all their fundraisers. What's the
it's that frozen smile.
Actually, well, ultimately what she said was she didn't mind me serving, she just didn't like the campaign. And what's different about this campaign than the other campaigns I've had is when I ran the first time in 1979, she actually took over the company and ran the company. We, our children were young, and so she was never really involved in the campaign, other than doing some door to door and that type of thing. This is really the first campaign that she has really got involved with. I mean, she's at campaign headquarters right now, and she's at campaign headquarters every day. And I fortunately have her and a couple other ladies that are very, very well organized and do an extremely good job. I wouldn't be where I'm at in the campaign today without them, because before they got there, it wasn't running all that smoothly.
Very good. Thanks so much for your time.